Hi, Mr. Waschuk. Good to have you back on the program.
Great to be with you, Ashi.
I wanted to start off by asking you for your reaction to this story about a senior global affairs official, a senior diplomat in this country, attending the Russia Day party. The government has said it shouldn't have happened and apologized for it. What do you think?
I think it's the kind of highly amenable go along to get alongside of the diplomatic personality getting the better of people's judgment. I know that in years past, we would get messages telling us, do not attend, do not send anyone to Iran's reception or something along those lines. So there should have been clearer guidance. And I guess someone decided, well, we still need to get along with them one way or another, which is on the one hand true. On the other hand, for a government that is saying we are isolating Russia, it's just plain the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I guess I wonder, do you find it curious? Like I've just given all the public remarks from the government, and especially the foreign affairs minister, it does not seem congruent with the posture that they've taken, which is isolate Russia, make sure there's maximum pain felt there. So you're saying, there could have been an email, though it doesn't appear there was, saying just don't go. Like this is something that you don't attend.
Well, ironically, the email would have had to have gone from the office that actually itself then went to the event, because it's protocol that sends out the message to people saying, right, don't attend country X's events.
This go along to get along mentality, though, I guess, should it come as a surprise? Because I mean, again, it's so hard to reconcile with the public posture taken.
It does, but it kind of comes with the professional diplomatic sort of side of things. It's I guess what our francophone friends would call déformation professionnelle. You kind of are trained to see the other side and think that there's always value in dialogue. And generally speaking, that's true, except when you as a government are trying to make the point about isolation. And so you have to repress those sort of professional instincts and follow the policy.
So we just spoke with a Ukrainian MP who is here kind of making the case for more aid. And he said, a response from the Canadian government to this could be the lowering of diplomatic presence of Russian diplomatic staff, or the ambassador himself, expelling the ambassador himself. That would be a response that, I'm paraphrasing, but would be a sign of goodwill. What do you think about that?
Well, I think Canada's been one of the few countries that did not join the Western move to reducing Russian diplomatic presence. And so this might be a time to revisit that decision.
Do you think expelling the ambassador, I know that the government's concern is that the retaliation would be the Canadian ambassador is expelled from Russia. Is that a severe consequence at this point? Do you think that is something that they should consider beyond just lowering the number of staff, but actually specifically expelling the ambassador?
I think that's quite a high-end response. And so I would look at the overall establishment before going that route.
Okay. On the state of the war itself, and in particular, what's happening in Severodonetsk and the significance potentially of what ends up happening there for the rest of eastern Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Again, that MP was talking about, for example, wanting more labs wanting some labs from Canada's stockpile, or just being in a position where they don't have the equipment necessary to push back Russian forces, and so Russian forces are encircling them there, and they're having to defend, trying to hold them off, basically, without being able to make advances themselves. What is your assessment of the state of help from Western countries like Canada?
We sort of blow hot and cold collectively, the Western countries. Initially, it was hands off. Who knows what's going to happen? Then it was, yes, we need to help Ukraine. It's doing way better than we thought. Then, oh, this is getting kind of long, and maybe, they won't end up prevailing anyway. The problem is that you got to provide the assistance in significant enough quantities that it makes a difference on the battlefield. because it looks like it's being kind of, I think a German commentator described it as being doled out in homeopathic doses, saying, "Ooh, I see the Russians have advanced a bit, so we'll give you, 4 more of this or 3 more of that." Whereas, in fact, Ukraine needs dozens and hundreds of pieces of heavy equipment to stem the tide. And I think it does require a kind of can-do attitude on the part of people, including in the Canadian government, as opposed to going for the bureaucratic explanation of why something's really complicated and why there's a lot of paperwork for that retired piece of equipment and not sure it's really worth it.
Do you think something will happen to change that calculation? Like, do you think that what would?
Well, in theory, these regular meetings, and I think another one's coming up Wednesday at Ramstein on coordinating aid to Ukraine, should be part of that. But I think it requires, once again, I think some sort of galvanizing event, and often they're sad events, that refocus people on what's going on here. I think back a number of years, probably 4 or 5 years, when Canada's retired M113s were in discussion. People wondering, in fact, there were actually ministers wondering whether they could be sent to Ukraine, and it was saying, "Oh, no, they're too old, it's too complicated." Well, the Dutch ones are now being very eagerly welcomed in Ukraine. So it requires taking a new look at, are admittedly not huge stocks, but there is stuff there that could probably be very helpful in Ukraine right now, as opposed to people, doing feasibility studies.